Hare Krishna. I was born in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So education was British education. My parents were liberal people. They were reasonably well off. They liked cultures of different countries. They liked to travel a lot. My mother was a French teacher. My father was a businessman. We visited many countries, and of course especially we used to go to France and Germany. And I studied those languages in school up to the end of school. That time the Beatles became very popular during my teenage years, and a lot of young people became interested in Indian culture. After school I took 1 year break before university and went traveling to Middle East, North Africa, and at the end of the year I decided not to go to university but to continue traveling. So over the course of about 4 years I traveled a lot, spent a lot of time in Morocco, in North Africa, more than a year probably, and other countries like Tunisia, Lebanon, Turkey, Greece, France, etc., European countries. Again, and during that time I first heard Maha Mantra from the recordings made by George Harrison, and developed a little bit of an attraction for chanting. I remember I saw the devotees in 1969 in Oxford doing Harinam, and they gave me an invitation to a program in Oxford Town Hall, which was actually for Srila Prabhupada, but unfortunately I didn't go. Continued traveling, but did come across the devotees again chanting in the streets of London in 1971, and one Mataji Mandakini sold me a magazine, and I was going to the America and Canada for a holiday because I decided to go to university in the autumn of 1971. Again, I had got a place in the university. Anyway, I was going for a short holiday to North America before going to university. And when I was in Canada, I found Bhagavad Gita in the apartment of one friend, and Bhagavad Gita as it is, that is. And I took it and read it, and I was very impressed. Especially, I understood from the reading it that one should search out a bona fide spiritual master. When I was returning to London, stopped in New York for a day, and there I saw a very big Harinam party. Maybe 70 or 80 devotees chanting. I was very attracted, and one devotee came and sold me another magazine and invited me to the temple. I said, I can't come, I'm going to London tonight. He said, please go to the temple in London, the address is in the magazine. So I read the magazine on the plane on the way back and decided to go to the temple. So after a couple of days I went to the temple about lunchtime, and the devotees gave me prasadam, and then they invited me on Harinam. So I spent about 3 hours on Harinam, and when we came back in the evening, the devotees said, the spiritual master is going to speak this evening, please stay and listen. So Srila Prabhupada was staying there at London Temple. It's August 1971, and I heard him lecture that first day. I was very impressed by the mood in the temple, by Srila Prabhupada's lecture, and by the enthusiasm and sincerity of the devotees, and the purity of the atmosphere. Devotees asked me to come back again, and after a couple of days I visited again on a Sunday program and heard Srila Prabhupada lecture again. Then the devotees invited me to stay in the temple, and I agreed. They simply requested me to shave my head. So next morning I shaved my head and stayed in the temple. And after a few days, the devotee taking care of me, Kulashekar Das, the first English devotee, he was planning to go to another city to open a temple, and he wanted to take me with him, so the temple president gave permission. I remember we went into Srila Prabhupada's room to get his blessings, and he was very pleased that we were going to open a new center. He said, very nice bright-faced brahmacharis, and gave us his garland as a blessing. So I went with Kulashekar first to Bristol and then to Cardiff, where we opened a center, and quite a few devotees joined very quickly. There were so many devotees, it packed up our small center, and Kulashekar asked me to go back to London until he could find a bigger place. While I was in London, the temple president of Paris came and asked me to go and help in Paris because I could speak French. So the London president gave permission, and I went to Paris, and there I was recommended for initiation. I got initiation by post. Beads were sent along with the name by Srila Prabhupada, and in December 1971 I got the first initiation. In about March I was sent back to the UK, first to Cardiff and then to London, where I was requested to lead the first traveling book distribution party in the UK. That began in April 1972. Srila Prabhupada came again in the summer for a Rath Yatra festival, and since we had one of the few vehicles in the temple, I often got the opportunity to drive him to different programs and on his morning walks. We also visited Edinburgh and Scotland with Srila Prabhupada to publicize his programs. So I continued that service of traveling Sankirtan for about a year. Then I was sent to Ireland, to Dublin, to open a center. And during that time, we acquired the Bhaktivedanta Manor, and Srila Prabhupada came to see the Bhaktivedanta Manor in May 1973. Then I was called back to London in June to become the president of the London Temple. And Srila Prabhupada himself came in July for Rath Yatra and stayed at Bhaktivedanta Manor most of the summer. He installed the deities of Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda on Janmashtami, 1973. So I remained as a president of the Berry Place Temple for about a year, and then I was asked to be president of the Bhaktivedanta Manor, which I did also for about 6 to 8 months, and then I was like a regional secretary of the UK and Ireland until late 1975 when I was sent to India. Well, in London we got opportunity to see Srila Prabhupada often. As I mentioned, he was there when I joined in 1971 in August, and again in 72 and 73 he spent summer months in London, mostly in July and August, and attended the Rath Yatras both of those years. He didn't have so much personal association with Prabhupada, except for driving him here and there. As a president of London Temple, he didn't give many personal instructions to me. That was mainly done by our GBC. But when I came to India, as soon as I landed in India, I was invited into Prabhupada's room, and he asked me who's managing now in London. And I told him, and he said, "It's good you have come to India, please manage this temple." I was made the vice president of the Bombay temple. So there were not so many devotees there, and Prabhupada spent quite a lot of time there. It was a long struggle he went through to get property there and to begin the construction, so he was very particular. The construction had started by the time I came, so it was going on, but it was in the early stages. And Prabhupada, he was very, very scrutinizingly checking everything, the expenditures and the development of the construction. So we could often go for morning walks with Prabhupada on the Juhu beach, and also go in his room for darshan. He would give darshan every afternoon from about 5 to 7. Often in the evening he would continue darshan on the roof. Sometimes he would go to programs. So he had quite a lot of opportunity to associate with him. Prabhupada was very busy all the time, of course. He had developed a big international movement. But he was always preaching Krishna consciousness. Every opportunity he would preach Krishna consciousness. After managing in Bombay for about 6 months, I went on the library party, distributing sets of Srila Prabhupada's books in all the libraries and colleges throughout India. And Prabhupada took a very keen interest in that. Our parties, we had about 4 vans going to different parts of India, and we would meet up every 6 weeks or so wherever Srila Prabhupada was. So he had the opportunity to meet him in different temples like Vrindavan, Delhi, Hyderabad, Calcutta, Mayapur, of course coming for the Mayapur festival also. Prabhupada we could see was a highly elevated spiritual personality, always on the transcendental platform, slept very little, and was always fully absorbed in translating books, translating especially the Bhagavatam, also the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and as I said, preaching at every opportunity. So he was a very powerful spiritual master, and the evidence we can see in the vast international society that he has created. I saw him on many occasions here at the festival, of course. After the 1977 festival, then we had completed most of the libraries throughout India, and we started going to the neighboring countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal. I thought Bangladesh was a good place to preach. I went to Mumbai in, I guess it was April 1977. Prabhupada was living in his new apartment then, and I was interested to go to Bangladesh. Our library party leader wasn't keen on my leaving the party. He asked Prabhupada's secretary not to allow me to meet Prabhupada without a letter from him. So I couldn't get a letter, but another devotee told Prabhupada that I was interested to go to Bangladesh, and he called me into his room and he said, "You have made the right decision. You should go there immediately and preach." And I went to Delhi to get a visa. And in the meantime, Prabhupada came to Delhi, and I was in darshan in his room one evening, and he said, "Oh, you haven't gone yet? You're still here?" I said, "I'm just getting a visa, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "Go immediately." So we went and began the preaching. But during that time, there was a shooting incident here in Mayapur. Some local villagers attacked the temple, and the devotees fired some guns in the air to scare them away, but then devotees were arrested, and it came in the newspapers. It also came in the newspapers in Bangladesh. So we were brought to the office of the National Director of Security and Intelligence, and he told us, "It's too dangerous for you in this country now. You have to leave." And we were given a letter to leave within 7 days. But he said, "You can come back later." Fortunately, we were not put in the blacklist. So we came back, and then I thought to go to Nepal. So Jayapataka Maharaj, who was our GBC at the time, he gave me a letter for Srila Prabhupada, and he came to Vrindavan to meet Prabhupada in August 1977. At the time he was very ill, but he was very pleased about the preaching in Bangladesh and gave his blessings to open this center in Nepal. And he told a story about a Bengali poet who had gone to London and wasted all his money. Then he was begging from different gentlemen. No one was giving him money, but finally one man gave him money. So he was a poet, and he was glorifying that man. "You have the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali mother." So Prabhupada told me, in the same way the British were famous for expanding the empire all over the world, so you should also expand the empire of Krishna consciousness, and do it with the courage of an Englishman and the heart of a Bengali mother. Hare Krishna. That's basically the last instruction I got from Srila Prabhupada.